What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, reading the news from here in Taipei. A total of 31 lawmakers in Taiwan are facing recall votes this summer, with the first round of votes scheduled for this weekend. One expert says a mass recall of this scale at the national level is unheard of, not just in Taiwan, but around the world. Cadence Caranta has more.
Something unprecedented is happening in Taiwan. Roughly a quarter of Taiwan's lawmakers could be ousted in the coming weeks, their political fates in the hands of voters once again, this time through recall votes. Taiwan has had recall elections before, but never on such a scale. One expert who studies recalls globally says this is likely the largest mass recall at the national level anywhere in the world.
So in terms of having a direct recall election attacking at the national level so many personalities, I think is absolutely exceptional.
So how did Taiwan get here? The right to recall is enshrined in Taiwan's constitution, giving voters the power to remove from office any elected official at any level. Recall attempts in Taiwan may be dated back to as early as the 1950s, but for several decades, most cases that made it to the voting stage targeted lower-level officials.
在当时罢免的层级主要就是针对乡镇市长、乡镇市民代表，还有像村里长这样的一个地方型的层级。
For years, attempts to recall higher-level officials failed because it was difficult to meet the high thresholds for signatures and voter turnout. In 1994, anti-nuclear groups launched recall campaigns against several lawmakers who were in support of building a new nuclear power plant in northern Taiwan. The campaigns were put to votes, but ultimately failed. Another small wave of recall campaigns targeting lawmakers was launched in 2014 after what's known as the Sunflower Movement. That year, hundreds of students occupied the legislature to protest a controversial trade deal with China. But once again, none of the campaigns were successful. Things started to change in 2016 when the law was amended to make it much easier to recall officials. In 2020, Han Guoyu, mayor of Kaohsiung, one of Taiwan's largest cities, was successfully recalled after over 900,000 people voted to remove him from office. The recall was driven by widespread public frustration, mostly over Han's decision to run for president just months after taking office, leaving many in the city feeling abandoned and betrayed. Just a year later, in 2021, a legislator caught up in a slew of controversial comments was removed from office. The first time ever a lawmaker in Taiwan had successfully been recalled. And that brings us to now, when Taiwan's recall law is being used on the largest scale yet. A total of 31 lawmakers face recall votes this summer, all of them from the main opposition Kuomintang. This unprecedented recall movement was sparked last year by months of public anger over the KMT's legislative agenda, from attempts to expand lawmakers' powers to massive cuts to government budgets. The KMT, allied with the smaller Taiwan People's Party, holds the majority in Taiwan's 113-seat legislature. If enough KMT lawmakers are removed, the opposition could lose its majority, reshaping the country's political landscape. And as voters get ready to head to the polls, all eyes are on Taiwan, with many watching closely to see how this pivotal moment will play out. Hank Xu and Cadence Caranta for TaiwanPlus.
The Taipei District Court has decided to keep former Taipei Mayor Wen-je in detention for 2 more months. He's been held without contact for nearly a year on corruption charges. But as Irene Lin reports, the question now is whether the court will let him out to vote on Saturday.
Former Taipei Mayor Wen-je will soon mark a year in detention as investigations into 2 corruption cases continue. That's after the Taipei District Court announced Ke's detention would be extended by 2 more months, effective on August 2nd. The judge says Ke, who used to lead the Taiwan People's Party, could collude with others and tamper with evidence if released. The TPP is protesting the decision.
我是强烈的建议一定要依法提起抗告。 不管机会大不大，在法律的程序上该怎么做就怎么做。在政治的层次上，跟这一个无良的政府，跟这一个违法滥权的赖清德政府宣战。
Despite being in custody, Ke has still received notice to vote in the upcoming recall elections on Saturday, a move the TPP is calling a crude joke by the ruling Democratic Progressive Party. But the DPP says Ke's right to vote or not has nothing to do with their party.
难道黄国昌会不知道，在台北市的投票通知单是由台北市选委会负责的吗？换而言之，如果黄国昌对这个作业有意见，他要问的人叫做台北市长蒋万安。
Meanwhile, Taipei Mayor Jiang Wen-an is brushing off any finger pointing.
我想问题的根源不在于投票通知单，而在于柯主席现在还被压。
With different parties and government agencies still debating who has the final say, and the July 26 election fast approaching, it's still unclear if Ke will get the chance to cast his vote. Scott Huang and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. House of Representatives has passed a bill aimed at preventing conflict between China and Taiwan. The Taiwan Conflict Deterrence Act would require the U.S. government to publish the financial information of high-level Chinese Communist Party officials in the case of a war in the Taiwan Strait. The bill would also restrict financial services for their immediate family members. The bill now moves on to the Senate before it can be made into law. Taiwanese chip giant TSMC's market value has surpassed $1 trillion for the first time, driven by rising demand for AI chips around the globe. The new record was set last Friday. Shares in the company closed at $40 that day on Taiwan's stock market. It makes TSMC the first Asian stock to reach $1 trillion valuation in nearly 2 decades, and it comes just after the company forecast 30% revenue growth for 2025. The de facto U.S. embassy in Taiwan says the two countries are in talks about a joint spaceport project. In a Facebook post on Monday, the American Institute in Taiwan said officials from both sides had started talks about the feasibility of the project. It said a suborbital space flight between Taiwan and Houston would take only 2.5 hours. The village of Zhoupeng in the southern county of Pingdong has been identified as a potential spaceport site. Taiwan's foreign ministry is defending its decision to donate to a medical program on an Israeli settlement in the occupied West Bank. It says the funds are strictly for humanitarian aid.
那我们的话，这个部分目前呢，相关讨论的议题都是跟人道援助、卫生医疗合作有关。那所以双方就这个议题在进行讨论当中。
The ministry was responding to concerns raised in a South China Morning Post report, which said the donation could violate international norms on dealing with Israeli-occupied areas. The UN considers Israeli settlements in Palestinian territories illegal under international law. Taiwan's foreign ministry says the donation is still under discussion and would be strictly focused on humanitarian goals. Anxieties are high for South Korea's apple farmers. That's after the country's trade minister suggested that it is considering concessions on imports of U.S. products to avoid tariffs on key South Korean exports. It comes as pressure is mounting for Seoul to strike a deal with Washington before August 1st or face a 25% tariff on all its goods. Izzy Wells has more.
Shim Chun-tae wakes up at 3 a.m. every morning to tend to these orchards in South Korea's southeastern Cheongsong County. It's an area renowned for its flavorful apples, and apple farmers make up around 1/3 of households. But Shim is now worried his livelihood could be at risk. Just last week, South Korea's trade minister hinted it could make concessions on some U.S. agricultural imports in efforts to avoid tariffs on key exports like cars and steel.
U.S. apples are very cheap. We can't compete with them. It's like an elementary school student in a fight with a university student. There's no way to win.
Apple farmers here have already been grappling with issues ranging from climate change to wildfires, smaller harvests and rising prices. And for many, the pressure of competing with cheaper U.S. produce could be the final blow.
If we surrender to the overwhelming pressure of agricultural imports from a vast and powerful country like the United States, who in Korea would still be willing to work in agriculture? Farming is not just an industry, it's a lifeline.
국민 먹거리 안전농산물 보장하라!
While anxieties run high for farmers here, this isn't the first time agriculture issues have driven people to the streets. Washington has long called for better access for its agricultural wares, but past attempts to open up South Korea's market to American beef have sparked nationwide protests, and the sector remains sensitive. But the new government faces a tough deadline: strike a deal with the US before August 1st or face a tariff of 25% on all of its goods. For a country where exports made up 40% of GDP last year, the stakes are very high. However, not everyone sees cheap US imports as a threat.
Although putting protections on agriculture does shield farmers, it also means ordinary consumers don't get to enjoy cheaper foreign agricultural products.
Apples are just one of the trade-offs that is now under scrutiny. With the August 1st deadline fast approaching and a new round of talks set for July 25th, the future of these fruits and the farmers who grow them still hangs in the balance. Andy Scher and Izzy Wells for TaiwanPlus.
2 major storms have hit Taiwan in the space of a single month, leaving an expensive trail of damage across much of the country. And the storming weather may not be over as a new system forms near the Philippines. John Van Trieste reports.
On this Yunlin County farm, days of intense rainfall have ruined the harvest. Gourds rot on the vine, taken out by Typhoon Danas and Tropical Storm Wipa. The farmer says there's nothing to be done. It's a similar story on farms across Taiwan. Agricultural damage has hit $64 million. And it could be tricky finding the funding to bail farmers out, as this isn't the first disaster to hit crops this year.
年初开始有非常多的低温，已经造成的这些天然灾害的损失，所以这一次的台风一定是不够的。我们还是会想办法用以缓济急，或用其他的方式来争取。
And it's not just on the farms. The roads and railways may be reopened and the power back on, but the bill for replacing everything lost in the storms will be steep. State-run energy company Taipower, for instance, expects to pay $34 million to fix all the damage. And then there are homeowners. Taidong County resident Zhou Xinlan's house is one of over 18,000 to suffer damage from flooding or landslides as heavy rains lashed Taiwan. She came home to find muddy water covering the ground floor. Her corner in southeastern Taiwan saw up to 700 millimeters of rain in 3 days in some places. Her grandson says the double punch of a typhoon plus a tropical storm in the same month has been hard on the area. And typhoon season is far from over. Already, a depression is brewing near the Philippines that could bring yet another blow. The storm will be nearest to Taiwan on the 24th and 25th.
这个低气压的话，在之后的话，看起来是有慢慢增强的一个趋势。那移动的方向目前来看，大概会偏西北的方向，然后通过琉球群岛，然后再往在北上的一个机会比较高一点。
That could mean a near miss, just scraping past Taiwan. But much of the country is still waterlogged, and any more heavy rain will likely bring further disaster. Alex Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
A Taiwanese Taekwondo athlete has taken silver at the 2025 World University Games in Germany. Jing Yijun has a bye in her first round before defeating 2 opponents to reach the semifinals. She took second place on the podium after losing to Song Da-bing of South Korea. Jing was shorter than all of her opponents and did not have the reach needed to stop head-level strikes. Another Taiwanese Taekwondo athlete, Cho Yi-rei, took bronze in the men's 74-kilogram division. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, a special moment from Sri Lanka. A project has carried out its 26th release of rescued and rehabilitated orphan elephants back into the wild. I'm Eric Gao. Take care. See you next time.